Tonight we are not merely walking through the woods, we are entering a 4 billion-year-old sanctuary of green shadows, where every breath you take is a gift from an ancient ancestor made of wood and starlight. The oldest trees on Earth do not announce themselves. They stand quietly among younger relatives, their bark weathered and scarred, their crowns often broken by centuries of storms. A bristlecone pine in California's White Mountains has been alive for nearly 5,000 years. It was already ancient when the pyramids were built, already a monument to patience when human civilizations were learning to write. The tree does not count its years. It does not celebrate milestones. It simply persists, adding one ring per year, each ring a record of rainfall and drought, of warm summers and brutal winters. The wood is so dense, so resinous, that it resists decay even after death. Fallen bristlecone branches can lie on the ground for thousands of years, barely decomposing, their grain still visible, their structure intact. To stand before such a tree is to confront time itself, to realize that your entire life is a flicker in the tree's long memory. The air at high altitude is thin and cold, scented with pine resin and stone. The bristlecone's bark is twisted and gnarled, stripped away in places to reveal smooth golden wood beneath. When you press your palm against it, the surface is cool and hard, almost petrified. The wind moves constantly through the sparse needles, a low whisper that never stops. The tree stands alone, or nearly so, on a slope of white dolomite rock, where few other plants can survive. The silence is profound. No birds sing here. No insects hum, only the wind and the tree and the slow passage of centuries. Roots do not merely anchor, they explore. A single oak tree can have roots that extend 3 times wider than its canopy, spreading through the soil in search of water and nutrients. The roots are not random. They grow toward moisture, toward pockets of nutrients, avoiding obstacles and toxic soils. They communicate with each other through chemical signals, and they form partnerships with fungi that extend their reach even further. The root system of a forest is a hidden architecture, a subterranean mirror of the canopy above, and it is far older than the trees themselves. When a tree dies, its roots often remain alive, sustained by neighboring trees through fungal networks. The forest does not let go of its own. The soil where roots grow is dark and damp, rich with the smell of decomposition and minerals. When you dig down, the roots appear as pale threads and thick cables, some as thin as hair, others as thick as your arm. They feel firm and slightly fibrous, and they are cool to the touch even in summer. The deeper you go, the darker the soil becomes, until it is almost black, and the roots become sparse, reaching down into layers of clay and rock. The roots do not hurry. They grow slowly, patiently, feeling their way through the earth, building a foundation that will support the tree for centuries. Trees remember, not with neurons or synapses, but with chemistry and structure. A tree that survives a drought will alter its physiology, producing deeper roots, thicker bark, smaller leaves. These changes can persist for years, even decades, making the tree more resilient to future droughts. Some trees can even pass this information to their offspring through epigenetic markers, chemical tags on their DNA that influence how genes are expressed. The forest learns, it adapts. It carries the memory of past hardships in the structure of its wood, in the chemistry of its sap, in the depth of its roots. The memory is written in the rings. A wide ring indicates a year of abundant rain and warmth. A narrow ring indicates drought or cold. Fire scars appear as dark streaks in the wood, and insect damage shows as irregular patterns. When you cut a cross-section of an old tree, you are looking at a timeline a record of climate and catastrophe stretching back centuries. The wood smells of resin and age, and the rings are so fine in some places that you need a magnifying glass to count them. The tree does not forget. It simply grows, layer by layer, recording everything. The root crown is where the tree meets the earth, where trunk becomes root, where above ground meets below. This is the most vulnerable part of the tree, and it is also the most resilient. If a tree is cut down, new shoots often sprout from the root crown, clones of the original tree, genetically identical. Some trees, like aspens and redwoods, reproduce primarily through root sprouting, creating vast colonies of genetically identical individuals connected by a single root system. The Pando aspen colony in Utah is a single organism covering more than 100 acres, with over 40,000 individual stems, all connected underground. The colony is estimated to be 80,000 years old, making it one of the oldest living organisms on Earth. The root crown is thick and gnarled, often partially buried in soil and leaf litter. The bark here is rougher, more textured, and it smells of earth and moisture. When you brush away the soil, you can see where the roots emerge, spreading outward like the spokes of a wheel. The wood is dense and hard, resistant to rot, and it is often covered in moss and lichen. The root crown does not die easily. It waits, patient and hidden, ready to send up new growth when the time is right. Mycorrhizae are not optional. More than 90% of plant species form these partnerships with fungi, and for many trees, survival without mycorrhizae is impossible. The fungus colonizes the root, wrapping around it or penetrating its cells, and in return for sugars from the tree, it provides water and nutrients, especially phosphorus and nitrogen, that the tree cannot access on its own. The fungal threads, called hyphae, extend far beyond the reach of the roots, sometimes for miles, creating a network that connects not just one tree, but entire forests. This is the Wood Wide Web, a living internet of chemical signals and nutrient exchange. The hyphae are finer than the finest thread, white or translucent, and they branch and fuse in patterns that resemble neural networks. When you dig carefully into the soil around a tree root, you can see them, delicate filaments clinging to the root surface, spreading through the dark earth. The soil smells rich and fungal like mushrooms and damp wood, and it feels cool and slightly sticky. The hyphae are everywhere, invisible to the casual observer but essential to the forest's survival. The tree and the fungus are not separate organisms. They are partners so intertwined that neither can exist without the other. Redwoods can live for more than 2,000 years, and their root systems are surprisingly shallow, rarely extending more than 10 feet deep. Instead, the roots spread wide, intertwining with the roots of neighboring redwoods to create a shared foundation. The trees hold each other up. In a redwood forest, you rarely see a single tree standing alone. They grow in groves, their roots so entangled that to uproot one would be to destabilize dozens. This is not cooperation in the human sense. It is structural interdependence, a shared architecture that has evolved over millions of years. The redwood grove is dim and cool, even on the brightest days. The air is thick with moisture, and it smells of bark and ferns, and the faint sweetness of decay. The trunks are massive, their bark red-brown and deeply furrowed, soft and fibrous to the touch. When you press your hand against a redwood, the bark gives slightly, and it leaves a faint rust-coloured residue on your skin. The forest floor is carpeted with sorrel and ferns, and the light filters down in shafts, golden and diffuse. The silence is not empty. It is full of the slow breath of trees, the drip of condensation, the distant call of a thrush. Baobabs are called the upside-down trees because their branches resemble roots reaching toward the sky. They can live for more than 2,000 years, and their trunks can grow to 30 feet in diameter, storing thousands of gallons of water in their spongy wood. During the dry season, the baobab sheds its leaves and enters a state of dormancy, surviving on stored water until the rains return. The tree is a reservoir, a living cistern in landscapes where water is scarce. Animals know this. Elephants will tear open baobab trunks to access the water inside, and the tree, remarkably, often survives, sealing the wound and continuing to grow. The baobab's bark is smooth and grey, cool to the touch even in the heat of the African sun. The trunk is massive and bulbous, and when you knock on it, it sounds hollow, resonant, like a drum. The wood inside is fibrous and wet, and it smells faintly sweet, like rain on dry earth. The branches are thick and stubby, spreading wide, and during the dry season, they are bare, skeletal against the sky. The air around a baobab is still and hot, and the only sound is the rustle of wind through the empty branches and the distant calls of birds. The heartwood is dead. At the center of every tree is a core of non-living cells, no longer transporting water or nutrients, serving only as structural support. The heartwood is denser, darker, and more resistant to decay than the sapwood that surrounds it. It is impregnated with resins, tannins, and other chemicals that protect it from fungi and insects. The tree builds its strength on the foundation of its own death, layer by layer, year by year. The heartwood does not rot, even when the outer layers are damaged or diseased. It endures. When you cut into an old tree, the heartwood is immediately visible, darker, richer in color than the pale sapwood. It smells stronger, more resinous, and it is harder to cut, the saw blade slowing as it bites into the dense grain. The heartwood of cedar smells sharp and clean, almost medicinal. The heartwood of oak smells of tannins, astringent and earthy. The heartwood of pine smells of resin, sweet and sticky. The tree has transformed its dead center into armor, into a pillar that will support the living wood for centuries. Buttress roots are adaptations to shallow, waterlogged soils. In tropical rainforests, where the soil is thin and nutrient-poor, many trees develop massive flared roots that spread outward from the base of the trunk like the flying buttresses of a cathedral. These roots provide stability in soft soil and increase the surface area for nutrient absorption. Some buttress roots are so large that you can walk between them, and they create small chambers and alcoves at the base of the tree, shelters for animals and fungi. The buttress roots are smooth and pale, often covered in moss and lichen, and they curve outward in elegant arcs. When you touch them, they feel solid and cool, like stone, and they smell of damp earth and vegetation. The spaces between the roots are dark and humid, and the air is thick with the scent of decomposition. Water pools in the hollows, and small frogs and insects make their homes here. The roots do not merely anchor the tree, they create habitat, they shape the forest floor, they are architecture and ecology combined. The growth rings tell a story, but it is a story written in a language we're only beginning to understand. Dendrochronology, the study of tree rings, allows scientists to reconstruct past climates, date archaeological sites, and even track the occurrence of volcanic eruptions and solar storms. Each ring is a year, but within that year are subtleties, variations in density, changes in cell structure, chemical signatures that record temperature, rainfall, and atmospheric composition. The tree is an archive, a living record of the world it has witnessed. The rings are visible in cross-section, concentric circles radiating from the center. In some trees, the rings are wide and evenly spaced. In others, they are narrow and irregular, compressed by years of hardship. The wood between the rings varies in color and texture. Light spring wood, dark summer wood, each layer distinct. When you run your finger across the rings, you can feel the ridges, the transitions between growth periods. The wood is smooth and cool, and it smells of the tree's essence: resin, tannin, cellulose. The tree has recorded everything, and the record remains, waiting to be read. Root grafting occurs when the roots of two trees grow together, fusing into a single structure. This is common in species like pines, spruces, and beeches, where roots from neighboring trees intertwine and eventually merge, creating a shared vascular system. Through these grafts, trees can share water, nutrients, and even chemical signals. A tree that is shaded and struggling can receive support from a healthier neighbor. A tree that has been cut down can sometimes remain alive for years, sustained entirely by the roots of surrounding trees. The forest is not a collection of individuals. It is a collective, a superorganism where the boundaries between self and other blur. The grafted roots are thick and gnarled, twisted together like rope, and where they fuse, the bark is rough and scarred. When you dig down and expose a root graft, you can see where two roots have become one, the wood merging seamlessly. The roots feel solid and cool, and they smell of earth and moisture. The soil around them is dark and rich, and the roots extend in both directions, connecting trees that may be dozens of feet apart. The graft is permanent. Once formed, it lasts for the life of the trees, a living bridge that carries resources and information. The taproot is the first root a seedling sends down, a single, strong anchor that drives deep into the soil. In some trees, the taproot persists throughout the tree's life, reaching depths of 30 feet or more. In others, it is eventually replaced by a network of lateral roots that spread wide rather than deep. The taproot is the tree's lifeline in drought, reaching water that surface roots cannot access. It is also the tree's anchor in wind, holding the trunk upright when storms try to topple it. The taproot does not branch extensively. It drives down, single-minded, seeking stability and water. When you dig down to expose a taproot, the work is hard. The root is thick and woody, and it resists the shovel. The soil around it is compacted, and the root often disappears into layers of clay or rock that are impossible to penetrate without machinery. The taproot smells of earth and wood, and it feels dense and unyielding. The bark is rough, and the wood beneath is pale and fibrous. The taproot does not give up. It pushes through obstacles, bends around rocks, and continues downward, patient and relentless. The forest floor is not solid ground. It is a living matrix of roots, fungi, bacteria, and decomposing organic matter, layered over mineral soil. The top layer is leaf litter, freshly fallen leaves, twigs, and bark. Beneath that is the duff layer, where leaves are partially decomposed, their structure still visible but softened and darkened. Below that is humus, fully decomposed organic matter, dark and crumbly, rich with nutrients. And beneath the humus is the mineral soil where roots and fungi extract the elements that trees need to grow. The forest floor is a factory, constantly breaking down the dead and transforming it into the living. The forest floor feels soft and springy underfoot, cushioned by layers of organic matter. When you kneel and dig with your hands, the leaf litter is dry and crackly on top, but damp and cool beneath. The duff smells earthy and sweet, like compost, and it stains your fingers dark. The humus is almost black, and it feels like rich potting soil, fine and crumbly. The mineral soil beneath is paler, clay or sand or loam, and it smells faintly of stone. The layers are distinct, each one a stage in the transformation of death into life. Mycelium is not a plant. It is not an animal. It belongs to a kingdom of its own, ancient and strange, and it is everywhere beneath your feet. A single teaspoon of forest soil can contain miles of fungal threads, invisible filaments called hyphae, that weave through the earth like neural pathways. The mycelium connects tree roots, exchanges nutrients, transmits chemical signals, and in doing so, creates what scientists have begun to call the Wood Wide Web, a living internet that predates human civilization by hundreds of millions of years. The forest floor is not silent. It is speaking constantly in a language of chemistry and electricity, and the mycelium is the medium through which the forest thinks. The hyphae are finer than the finest thread, white or translucent, and they branch and fuse in patterns that resemble the neural networks of a brain. When you dig carefully into the soil around a tree root, you can see them, delicate filaments clinging to the root surface, spreading through the dark earth like cobwebs. The soil smells rich and fungal, like mushrooms after rain, damp wood, and the sweet decay of leaf litter. It feels cool and slightly sticky between your fingers, and when you lift a handful, the hyphae stretch and break, releasing a faint earthy scent. The mycelium is everywhere, invisible to the casual observer, but essential to everything that grows. Mushrooms are not the organism. They are the fruiting bodies, temporary structures that emerge to release spores and then dissolve back into the earth. The actual fungus is the mycelium beneath the soil, which can live for decades, centuries, even millennia. Some mycelia produce mushrooms only once every few years, waiting for the perfect conditions, moisture, temperature, the right balance of nutrients. When the conditions align, the mushroom emerges overnight, a sudden eruption of colour and form that seems almost magical. But there is no magic, only patience and chemistry. The mushrooms appear in clusters or rings, their caps smooth or scaly, their colours ranging from white to red to deep purple. They smell earthy and sometimes faintly sweet, and their textures vary. Some are firm and meaty, others delicate and brittle. The gills beneath the cap are lined with spores, millions of them, each one microscopic, each one capable of growing into a new mycelium if it lands in the right place. The mushroom lasts only days or weeks before it collapses, liquefying or drying out, but the mycelium continues its work below, patient and unseen. The largest living organism on Earth is a fungus. Armillaria ostoyae, the honey mushroom, covers more than 2,000 acres in Oregon's Blue Mountains. The mycelium has been growing for an estimated 2,500 years, spreading through the soil, feeding on tree roots, killing some trees and sustaining others. Above ground, you would see only scattered clusters of honey-coloured mushrooms, unremarkable and easily overlooked. But beneath the surface, it is all one organism, genetically identical, connected by a vast network of hyphae that weighs hundreds of tons. The forest where the fungus grows is quiet and cool, dominated by pines and firs, and the ground is carpeted with needles and dotted with stumps of trees the fungus has killed. The air smells of resin and decay, and the mushrooms, when they appear in autumn, smell faintly of honey and earth. The mycelium itself is invisible, but its effects are everywhere. Dead trees leaning at angles, new saplings rising in the gaps, the slow recycling of wood into soil. The fungus does not hurry. It spreads slowly, patiently, across the forest floor, a silent giant that has been here longer than any tree. Mycorrhizae are partnerships between fungi and plant roots, and they are not optional. More than 90% of plant species depend on these relationships to survive. The fungus colonizes the root, wrapping around it or penetrating its cells, and in exchange for sugars from the plant, it provides water and nutrients, especially phosphorus and nitrogen, that the plant cannot access on its own. The fungal hyphae extend far beyond the reach of the roots, sometimes for miles, increasing the plant's absorptive surface area by a factor of 100 or more. Without mycorrhizae, most forests would not exist. The mycorrhizal roots are thicker than normal roots, swollen and often branched in unusual patterns. When you dig them up, They are pale or yellowish and they smell faintly fungal, like damp earth and mushrooms. The hyphae cling to the root surface in a dense mat, and when you pull them apart, they stretch and tear, releasing a faint, earthy scent. The partnership is ancient, dating back more than 400 million years, to the time when plants first colonized land. The fungus and the plant are not separate organisms. They are a single functional unit, so intertwined that neither can survive without the other. Mycelium can communicate. When a tree is attacked by insects or disease, it can send chemical signals through the mycorrhizal network to neighboring trees, warning them of the threat. The warned trees respond by increasing their production of defensive chemicals, making themselves less palatable to herbivores or more resistant to infection. This is not conscious communication, but it is information transfer, a form of language written in molecules and transmitted through fungal threads. The forest is not a collection of isolated individuals. It is a network, a community, a collective intelligence. The signals are invisible, chemical gradients moving through the soil, and they travel faster than you might expect. Within hours, trees across a network can respond to a threat detected by a single individual. The forest floor is quiet, but beneath the surface the mycelium is alive with activity, transmitting warnings, sharing resources, coordinating responses. The smell of the soil is rich and complex, a mixture of fungi, bacteria, and plant roots, all interacting in ways we are only beginning to understand. The mycelium does not think, but it facilitates something like thought, a distributed intelligence that operates on a timescale far slower than our own. Fungal spores are microscopic, often measuring just a few micrometers across, and they are produced in staggering numbers. A single giant puffball can release 7 trillion spores, each one capable of growing into a new mycelium if it lands in the right conditions. The spores are dispersed by wind, water, animals, and insects, and they can remain viable for years, waiting in the soil for the perfect moment to germinate. Most spores never germinate. They land in the wrong place, or the conditions are not right, or they are eaten by bacteria. But a few succeed, and that is enough. The spores are invisible to the naked eye, but when released in large numbers, they form clouds, brown, white, or yellow, that drift on the slightest breeze. They have no smell, no taste, only potential. Some spores are smooth, some are spiny, some are shaped like stars or spirals, each one a tiny work of geometric art. When you touch a mature puffball, it releases a cloud of spores that hangs in the air like smoke, and the smell is faintly earthy, like dust and mushrooms. The spores settle slowly, coating everything, waiting for the chance to grow. Decomposition is not destruction, it is transformation. Fungi are the primary decomposers in forest ecosystems, breaking down dead wood, fallen leaves, and animal remains. They secrete enzymes that digest cellulose, lignin, and other complex organic molecules, turning them into simpler compounds that can be absorbed by plant roots. Without fungi, dead material would accumulate, nutrients would be locked away, and the forest would suffocate under its own waste. The fungi are the recyclers, the alchemists, turning death into life. The decomposing wood is soft and spongy, riddled with fungal hyphae and insect tunnels. It smells sweet and earthy, like compost, and it crumbles easily when you pick it up. The fungi growing on the wood are often shelf-like or bracket-shaped, tough and leathery, and they range in colour from white to brown to bright orange. The wood beneath is dark and damp, and when you break it apart, you can see the white threads of mycelium running through it like veins. The fungi do not rest. They work constantly, breaking down, recycling, sustaining the cycle. Lichens are not single organisms, but partnerships between fungi and algae or cyanobacteria. The The fungus provides structure and protection, while the algae or bacteria photosynthesize, producing food for both partners. Lichens can survive in the harshest environments on Earth, on bare rock, in deserts, in the Arctic, even in the vacuum of space. They grow slowly, sometimes less than a millimeter per year, and some are thousands of years old. Lichens are pioneers, colonizing bare surfaces and slowly breaking down rock into soil, preparing the way for other life. Lichens come in many forms: crusty patches on rocks, leafy rosettes on tree bark, branching structures that hang from branches like miniature forests. They are grey, green, orange, yellow, white, every colour except blue. They feel dry and papery or slightly rubbery, and they have no smell, or only a faint dusty scent. When wet, they become soft and pliable, absorbing water like a sponge. The lichen does not hurry. It grows slowly, patiently, transforming rock into soil, one molecule at a time. Bioluminescent fungi produce a cold green glow through chemical reactions in their mycelium or fruiting bodies. The light is faint, visible only in complete darkness, and it serves purposes we do not fully understand, perhaps to attract insects that will disperse spores, perhaps as a byproduct of metabolic processes. The glowing fungi are found in forests around the world, turning fallen logs and forest floors into scenes of quiet magic. The light does not flicker. It simply glows, constant and cool, a reminder that the forest is alive even in darkness. The light is soft and eerie, green or blue-green, and it illuminates nothing but the fungi themselves. The mushrooms smell of earth and decay, and the wood they grow on is soft and crumbling, riddled with mycelial threads. The forest at night is silent, and the glow is the only light casting faint shadows on the surrounding leaves and soil. When you touch the glowing fungi, they feel cool and slightly damp, and the light does not change. The fungi glow not for us, but for themselves, or for the insects they attract, indifferent to our wonder. Fairy rings are circular patterns of mushrooms that appear in forests and grasslands, formed when mycelium grows outward from a central point in all directions. The oldest fairy rings are centuries old, expanding a few inches each year, and some are more than half a mile in diameter. The grass or vegetation inside the ring is often darker and more lush, fertilized by the nutrients the fungus releases as it decomposes organic matter. Folklore attributed the rings to dancing fairies or witches, but the truth is stranger: a single organism growing outward year after year in a perfect geometric pattern. The mushrooms appear overnight, forming a perfect circle, and they disappear just as quickly, leaving only the ring of darker grass or richer soil. The air smells of earth and mushrooms, and the grass inside the ring feels softer, thicker, fed by the hidden work of the mycelium below. The ring expands slowly, imperceptibly, and if you return year after year, you can see it growing, a living compass drawn in fungi and vegetation. The mycelium does not know it is creating a pattern. It simply grows, following the geometry encoded in its structure. Fungi can break down almost anything. Some species digest lignin, the tough polymer that gives wood its strength, allowing them to decompose trees. Others break down cellulose, chitin, keratin, even synthetic materials like plastics and petroleum products. Scientists are researching fungi as tools for bioremediation, using them to clean up oil spills, toxic waste, and polluted soil. The fungi grow on whatever they consume, their mycelium spreading through contaminated soil or oil-soaked ground, secreting enzymes, absorbing nutrients, transforming poison into harmless byproducts. The contaminated soil is dark and oily, and it smells acrid, chemical, unnatural. But where the fungi grow, the smell begins to change. becoming more earthy, more organic. The mycelium spreads through the soil in white threads, and the contamination gradually breaks down, the toxins metabolized into simpler compounds. The process is slow but relentless, and the fungi do not tire. They simply grow, consuming, transforming, healing the soil one molecule at a time. The fungi do not judge. They simply digest, turning the unusable into the usable. Fungi are ancient. They appeared on land more than 400 million years ago, long before flowering plants, and they may have been essential to the colonization of land by plants. Early plants lacked true roots, and they likely relied on mycorrhizal fungi to extract nutrients from the soil. Fossils show fungal hyphae intertwined with the earliest plant tissues, evidence of a partnership that has endured for hundreds of millions of years. The fungi were here first, preparing the soil, breaking down rock, creating the conditions that would allow forests to exist. The fossils are delicate, preserved in stone, and they show structures that are unmistakably fungal, branching hyphae, spores, fruiting bodies. The stone smells faintly of minerals, and the fossils are often barely visible, requiring magnification to see. But they are there, proof that fungi have been shaping the world since the beginning of terrestrial life. The fungi remember in their genes, in their structures, in their partnerships. They are older than trees, older than flowers, older than almost anything alive on land. The mycelium does not sleep. It grows constantly, extending its hyphae through the soil, seeking nutrients, forming partnerships, transmitting signals. The forest floor is never still. Beneath the surface, the mycelium is alive with activity, a living network that connects every tree, every plant, every organism in the forest. The mycelium is the forest's nervous system, its internet, its collective memory. And it has been here, growing, connecting, sustaining for longer than we can imagine. A leaf is a chemical factory. It takes sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water, and transforms them into sugar and oxygen through a process so elegant and efficient that human technology has yet to replicate it. Photosynthesis is the foundation of nearly all life on Earth. Every breath you take, every calorie you consume, every living thing you have ever seen, all of it traces back to a leaf, somewhere, turning light into life. The leaf does not labor, it does not struggle, it simply exists in the light, and in existing it performs a miracle every second of every day. A leaf in your hand is almost weightless, thin as paper, and it smells green, a sharp, fresh scent that fades quickly once the leaf is detached from the tree. The surface is smooth or waxy or slightly fuzzy, depending on the species, and if you hold it up to the light, you can see the veins branching like rivers, carrying water and nutrients to every cell. The underside is often paler, dotted with tiny pores called stomata, invisible to the naked eye but essential to the leaf's work. When you crush a leaf between your fingers, it releases its scent more strongly. Mint, eucalyptus, oak, each one distinct, and it stains your skin green with chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the molecule that captures light, and it is green because it reflects green wavelengths while absorbing red and blue. This is why forests are green, why the world is green, because chlorophyll is the most abundant pigment on Earth. The molecule sits inside chloroplasts, tiny organelles within plant cells, and when light strikes it, electrons are excited to higher energy states. These electrons are then passed through a series of proteins in a process that generates ATP, the energy currency of cells. The energy is used to split water molecules, releasing oxygen as a byproduct. The oxygen drifts away, and we breathe it. The chloroplast is invisible without a microscope, but its effects are everywhere. The leaf is green because of it. The air is breathable because of it. The forest is alive because of it. When you look at a leaf, you are looking at billions of chloroplasts, each one capturing photons, splitting water, releasing oxygen, building sugars. The process is silent and constant, and it has been happening for more than 2 billion years since cyanobacteria first evolved the ability to photosynthesize and filled the atmosphere with oxygen, transforming the earth. Stomata are the pores on the underside of leaves, and they open and close to regulate gas exchange. When they are open, carbon dioxide enters the leaf, and oxygen and water vapor exit. When they are closed, the leaf conserves water but cannot photosynthesize. The stomata are controlled by guard cells, which swell and shrink in response to light, humidity, and the plant's internal signals. A single leaf can have hundreds of thousands of stomata, each one opening and closing independently, responding to the environment in real time. The stomata are too small to see without magnification, but their effects are visible. On a hot day, a tree can transpire hundreds of gallons of water through its stomata, cooling itself and humidifying the air. The water evaporates from the leaf surface, and you can feel it. The air beneath a tree is cooler, damper, more comfortable than the air in the open sun. The stomata do not think, but they respond, opening when conditions are favorable, closing when water is scarce, balancing the need for carbon dioxide with the need to conserve moisture. The Calvin cycle is the second stage of photosynthesis, the part that happens in the dark. Using the energy captured by chlorophyll, the plant takes carbon dioxide from the air and builds it into glucose, a simple sugar. The process is complex, involving more than a dozen enzymes and intermediate molecules, but the result is simple. Carbon from the air becomes carbon in the plant. This is how trees grow. They do not pull mass from the soil, they pull it from the air, atom by atom, using sunlight as the energy source. The glucose is used immediately or stored as starch, and it is the foundation of the plant structure. The cellulose in the cell walls, the lignin in the wood, the sugars in the sap, all of it comes from carbon dioxide, transformed by sunlight. When you touch a tree trunk, you are touching solidified air, carbon atoms that were once part of the atmosphere, now locked into wood. The tree is a sculpture made of light and air, and it will stand for decades or centuries, holding that carbon until it dies and decomposes, returning it to the soil and the atmosphere. Oxygen is a waste product. For plants, it is the byproduct of splitting water molecules during photosynthesis, and most of it is released into the atmosphere through the stomata. For us, it is essential. We breathe it, and our cells use it to extract energy from glucose in a process that is essentially photosynthesis in reverse. The oxygen you are breathing right now was produced by a plant, somewhere within the last few weeks or months. The air is not a static reservoir, it is constantly being recycled. Oxygen produced by plants, consumed by animals, and produced again. The oxygen is invisible and odorless, but its presence is everywhere. The air feels fresh beneath the trees, and it smells of leaves and soil and moisture. The forest produces more oxygen than it consumes, and the excess drifts away on the wind, mixing with the atmosphere, traveling across continents. A single large tree can produce enough oxygen to support 2 people for a year. The tree does not produce oxygen for us. It produces it because splitting water is part of photosynthesis, and the oxygen is simply released, a gift we did not ask for, but cannot live without. Leaves change color in autumn because chlorophyll breaks down. As the days shorten and temperatures drop, the tree stops producing chlorophyll, and the green pigment degrades, revealing other pigments that were present all along but masked by the green. Carotenoids produce yellow and orange, anthocyanins produce red and purple, and tannins produce brown. The colors are not new. They were always there, hidden beneath the chlorophyll, waiting to be revealed. The autumn forest is a riot of color. gold, orange, red, purple, brown, and the air smells of fallen leaves, earthy and slightly sweet. The leaves are dry and brittle, and they crunch underfoot, releasing a scent that is the essence of autumn. The colours are brightest on sunny days when the anthocyanins are most concentrated, and they fade quickly, the leaves turning brown and falling within a few weeks. The tree is not dying, it is preparing for winter, withdrawing nutrients from the leaves and sealing the connection points, letting the leaves fall so it can survive the cold. Transpiration is the movement of water through a plant, from the roots to the leaves, where it evaporates into the atmosphere. The process is driven by evaporation at the leaf surface, which creates a negative pressure that pulls water up from the roots. This is how trees move water to heights of 300 feet or more, without a pump, without muscles, using only the physical properties of water and the structure of the xylem, the vascular tissue that carries water through the plant. The xylem is made of dead cells, hollow tubes stacked end to end, and the water moves through them in a continuous column, held together by cohesion and adhesion. When you cut a branch, you can see the xylem as tiny pores in the cross-section, and if the branch is fresh, water will seep from the cut surface. The water is cool and clear, and it smells faintly of sap and wood. The transpiration stream is constant, flowing upward during the day when the stomata are open, slowing at night when they close. The tree is a fountain, pulling water from the soil and releasing it into the air, humidifying the forest and cooling itself. Photosynthesis is not perfectly efficient. Only about 3 to 6% of the light energy that strikes a leaf is converted into chemical energy. The rest is reflected, transmitted, or lost as heat. And yet, this small percentage is enough to power nearly all life on Earth. The inefficiency is not a flaw, it is a constraint, a limit imposed by the physics of light and chemistry, and life has adapted to work within that limit. The leaf absorbs light, and the excess energy is dissipated as heat, warming the leaf surface. On a hot day, a leaf can be several degrees warmer than the surrounding air, and the heat radiates outward, creating convection currents that help cool the leaf. The leaf does not waste energy. It uses what it can and releases the rest, maintaining a balance between energy capture and heat dissipation. The inefficiency is built into the system, and the system has worked for billions of years, sustaining forests and oceans and the atmosphere itself. The forest breathes. During the day, it absorbs carbon dioxide and releases oxygen. At night, the process reverses. The trees respire, consuming oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide, just like animals. The net effect over a full day is that the forest produces more oxygen than it consumes, but the balance is closer than you might think. Old-growth forests, where growth has slowed, produce only slightly more oxygen than they consume. Young, fast-growing forests are the most productive, pulling carbon from the atmosphere and locking it into wood. The forest at night is different. The air is cooler, damper, and it smells of soil and decay. The trees are still, their stomata closed, and the oxygen production has stopped. The forest is respiring burning sugars to maintain its metabolism, and the carbon dioxide it releases mixes with the air, invisible and odorless. The forest does not sleep, but it slows, conserving energy, waiting for the sun to rise and photosynthesis to begin again. Shade leaves and sun leaves are different. A leaf growing in full sunlight is smaller, thicker, and more densely packed with chloroplasts than a leaf growing in shade. The sun leaf is adapted to high light levels, and it can photosynthesize at a higher rate, but it also requires more water and nutrients. The shade leaf is larger, thinner, and more efficient at capturing the limited light that filters through the canopy. The tree does not produce one type of leaf. It produces both, adapting to the light conditions at each position on the tree. The sun leaves are tough and leathery, and they feel warm to the touch, Even in the shade leaves are soft and delicate, and they feel cool and slightly damp. The sun leaves are often darker green, more densely pigmented, while the shade leaves are paler. Their chloroplasts spread thin to maximize light capture. The tree is not uniform. It is a mosaic, each leaf adapted to its specific environment, each one contributing to the whole. Carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere are rising, and plants are responding. Higher CO2 levels can increase photosynthesis rates, a phenomenon called CO2 fertilization. But the effect is limited by other factors: water, nutrients, temperature. Some plants grow faster in high CO2 environments, but others do not, and the long-term effects on forests are uncertain. The forest is not a passive recipient of atmospheric changes. It is responding, adapting, but the pace of change is faster than anything the forest has experienced in millions of years. The air in the forest smells the same, feels the same, but the chemistry is different. The CO2 is invisible, odorless, but it is there, absorbed by the leaves, built into sugars, locked into wood. The forest is a carbon sink, pulling CO2 from the atmosphere and storing it. But the sink has limits. The trees can only grow so fast, store so much carbon, and when they die, the carbon is released back into the atmosphere. The forest is trying to keep up, but the balance is shifting. Photosynthesis is ancient. It evolved more than 2 billion years ago in cyanobacteria, single-celled organisms that filled the oceans and eventually the atmosphere with oxygen. The oxygen was toxic to most life at the time, causing a mass extinction event. But it also created opportunities for new forms of life, organisms that could use oxygen to extract energy from food more efficiently. Plants inherited photosynthesis from cyanobacteria through endosymbiosis, when a cyanobacterium was engulfed by a larger cell and became a chloroplast. The chloroplast still carries its own DNA, a remnant of its bacterial ancestry, and it reproduces independently within the plant cell. The partnership is ancient and permanent, and it has shaped the Earth. The oxygen in the atmosphere, the ozone layer that protects us from ultraviolet radiation, the forests and grasslands and oceans, all of it exists because of photosynthesis, because of a partnership formed billions of years ago between two cells. The leaf is not just a leaf, it is a living fossil, a reminder of the deep history of life on Earth. The sun rises, the stomata open, the chlorophyll captures light, the water splits, the oxygen releases, the carbon builds. The forest breathes green and patient, turning light into life as it has for hundreds of millions of years. The tallest tree on Earth is a coast redwood named Hyperion, standing 380 feet tall in a remote grove in Northern California. Its exact location is kept secret to protect it from visitors who might damage its roots or the surrounding ecosystem. Hyperion is not the oldest tree, nor the widest, but it is the tallest, its crown reaching higher than a 30-story building. The tree has been growing for somewhere between 600 and 800 years, and it may continue growing for centuries more, adding inches to its height each year, as long as conditions remain favourable. To stand at the base of Hyperion is to feel insignificant. The trunk rises straight and massive, disappearing into the canopy far above, and the bark is red-brown and deeply furrowed, soft and fibrous to the touch. The air smells of redwood, a scent somewhere between cedar and cinnamon, resinous and clean. The forest floor is dim and cool, carpeted with ferns and sorrel, and the light filters down in shafts, golden and diffuse. The silence is profound, broken only by the distant call of a bird, or the rustle of wind through the canopy, a sound so high above that it seems to come from another world. The canopy is a world unto itself, a layer of leaves and branches 100 feet or more above the ground, where sunlight is abundant and the air is drier and warmer than the forest floor below. In a tropical rainforest, the canopy is so dense that it blocks out 98% of the sunlight, creating a dim, humid world beneath. The canopy is home to more species than any other layer of the forest: birds, insects, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, and plants that grow only on other plants, never touching the ground. The canopy smells different from the forest floor. The air is lighter, warmer, tinged with the scent of flowers and fruit, and the faint, acrid smell of bird droppings. The leaves rustle constantly, a sound like distant applause, and the light is dappled and green, filtered through layer upon layer of foliage. Occasionally a bird calls, sharp and sudden, and then the rustling resumes. The canopy is alive with movement, with creatures that spend their entire lives in the trees, never descending to the ground. It is a hidden world, largely inaccessible to humans, and it holds secrets we are only beginning to discover. Wind shapes trees in exposed locations, on mountain tops, along coastlines, in open plains. Trees grow shorter, thicker, and more gnarled, their branches bent away from the prevailing wind. This is called Krummholz, German for crooked wood, and it is the tree's response to constant mechanical stress. The wind does not break the tree. It sculpts it, forcing it to grow low and dense, minimizing its profile, reducing the force the wind can exert on it. The Krummholz trees are twisted and stunted, their trunks thick and their branches short, and they often grow in clusters, sheltering each other from the wind. The bark is rough and weathered, and the wood is dense and hard, resistant to rot. The wind is constant here, a low roar that never stops, and the air smells of salt, or stone, or pine, depending on the location. The trees do not fight the wind. They adapt to it, bending and twisting, growing in the only way that allows them to survive. The wind is not an enemy, it is a sculptor, and the trees are its medium. The tallest trees are not the oldest. Redwoods can live for 2,000 years, but they do not grow tall quickly. A redwood may take 500 years to reach its full height, and once it does, it stops growing taller and begins growing wider, adding girth to support its massive crown. The oldest trees are often shorter, their tops broken by storms or lightning, their growth slowed by age. Height is a young tree's ambition. Girth is an old tree's achievement. The old redwoods are massive, their trunks 30 feet in diameter or more, and their bark is thick as a mattress, fire-resistant and insulating. When you press your hand against an old redwood, the bark gives slightly, and it feels worn, even in the shade. The tree radiates a sense of permanence, of having been here longer than anything else, of intending to remain. The crown is often irregular, broken and regrown, and the branches are thick and gnarled, covered in moss and lichen. The tree does not hurry. It has outlasted storms and fires and droughts, and it will outlast more. Wind disperses seeds. Maples produce winged seeds called samaras that spin as they fall, slowing their descent and allowing the wind to carry them far from the parent tree. Dandelions produce seeds with feathery parachutes that can travel for miles on a breeze. Cottonwoods release seeds embedded in fluffy white fibers that drift through the air like snow. The wind is the forest's postal service, carrying genetic information across landscapes, ensuring that trees do not grow only in the shadow of their parents. The seeds are light and delicate, and they smell faintly of the tree that produced them, sweet, resinous, or earthy. When you catch a cottonwood seed in your hand, the fibers are soft and silky, and the seed itself is tiny, barely visible. The wind carries them in clouds, and they settle on the ground, on water, on rooftops and roads, most of them landing in places where they cannot germinate. But a few find the right conditions: moist soil, sunlight, space, and they sprout, and a new tree begins. The wind does not care where the seeds land. It simply carries them, indifferent and relentless. The emergent layer is the highest layer of the rainforest, where a few giant trees rise above the canopy, their crowns exposed to full sunlight and wind. These trees are the tallest in the forest, and they are subjected to conditions that the canopy trees below never experience: intense sunlight, high temperatures, strong winds, and low humidity. The emergent trees are adapted to these extremes, with thick bark, deep roots, and leaves that can tolerate desiccation. The emergent trees stand alone, their crowns isolated from the canopy below, and they are home to birds of prey, bats, and insects that feed on the flowers and fruits that bloom in full sunlight. The air at this height is hot and dry, and it smells of sun-baked leaves and resin. The wind is constant, bending the branches and rustling the leaves, and the view extends for miles over the green sea of the canopy to the horizon. The emergent trees are pioneers, reaching higher than their neighbors, claiming the sunlight and paying the price in exposure and stress. Trees communicate through the air. When a tree is attacked by insects, it releases volatile organic compounds, chemical signals that drift on the wind and are detected by neighboring trees. The neighboring trees respond by increasing their production of defensive chemicals, making their leaves less palatable or more toxic to herbivores. This is not conscious communication, but it is information transfer, a warning carried on the breeze, and it can spread through a forest in hours. The chemicals are invisible and mostly odorless to humans, but they are there, drifting through the air, absorbed by the leaves of nearby trees. The forest smells different when it is under attack, sharper, more resinous as the trees ramp up their defenses. The air is filled with signals, with warnings, with the chemical language of plants, and the trees respond, adjusting their chemistry, preparing for the threat. The forest is not silent. It is speaking, constantly, in a language we are only beginning to understand. Lightning strikes the tallest trees. In a forest, the emergent trees and the tallest canopy trees are the most likely to be hit, and the damage can be catastrophic. The lightning superheats the sap, turning it to steam, and the pressure can explode the trunk, splitting it from top to bottom. Some trees survive, sealing the wound and continuing to grow. Others die, their crowns shattered, their trunks hollowed out by decay. The lightning scar is visible for decades, a vertical streak of bare wood running down the trunk, and the wood around it is often charred and blackened. The scar smells of charcoal and resin, and the wood is hard and brittle, resistant to rot. The tree that survives a lightning strike is marked forever, but it continues to grow, adding new wood around the scar, covering it slowly year by year. The tree does not forget. It simply endures, incorporating the damage into its structure, turning the wound into a part of its history. The wind in the canopy is different from the wind on the ground. The canopy acts as a barrier, slowing the wind and creating turbulence, and the air beneath the canopy is calmer, more humid, and cooler than the air above. The wind in the canopy is constant, bending the branches, rustling the leaves, and it shapes the trees, forcing them to grow flexible, resilient, able to bend without breaking. The sound of wind in the canopy is a low, constant roar, punctuated by the creak of branches and the occasional crack of a breaking limb. The air smells of leaves and resin, and it feels cooler, damper than the air in the open. The trees sway in the wind, their trunks bending slightly, their branches moving in waves, and the motion is hypnotic, calming, a reminder that the forest is alive, that it moves and breathes and responds to the world around it. The wind does not harm the trees, it strengthens them, forcing them to grow strong and flexible, able to withstand the storms that will inevitably come. Epiphytes are plants that grow on other plants. using them for support but not parasitizing them. In tropical rainforests, the canopy is covered in epiphytes, orchids, bromeliads, ferns, mosses that grow on the branches and trunks of trees, never touching the ground. The epiphytes absorb water and nutrients from the air and from the rain that runs down the bark, and they provide habitat for insects, frogs, and other small animals. The epiphytes are lush and green, their leaves soft and damp, and they smell of moisture and vegetation. The branches they grow on are often invisible beneath the layers of moss and ferns, and the bark is soft and spongy, saturated with water. The epiphytes do not harm the tree, but they add weight, and in extreme cases, a branch can break under the load. The tree tolerates them, and in return, the epiphytes create a microhabitat, a garden in the air, that supports a diversity of life the tree could not support on its own. The tallest trees are the most vulnerable. They are exposed to wind, lightning, and drought, and they require enormous amounts of water to transport nutrients to their crowns. The taller the tree, the greater the tension in the water column, and there is a theoretical limit to how tall a tree can grow before the water column breaks, a phenomenon called cavitation. The limit is somewhere around 400 feet, and no tree has ever been measured taller than that. The water column is held together by cohesion and adhesion, and it is under constant tension, pulled upward by evaporation at the leaves. When the tension becomes too great, air bubbles form in the xylem, breaking the column and preventing water from reaching the crown. The tree can repair small cavitations, but large ones are fatal. The tallest trees live on the edge, pushing the limits of physics, and they pay the price in vulnerability. The tree does not know it is approaching a limit. It simply grows, reaching for the light, until it can grow no taller. The forest canopy is a mosaic. Some trees are taller, some shorter, some with wide crowns, others with narrow, and the gaps between them create a patchwork of light and shadow on the forest floor. The gaps are created by fallen trees, by storms, by disease, and they are filled slowly, over decades, as younger trees grow up to claim the space. The canopy is not static. It is constantly changing, constantly rearranging, a living puzzle that never settles into a final form. The light that filters through the canopy is dappled and shifting, moving with the wind, and it creates patterns on the forest floor that change throughout the day. The air beneath the canopy is cool and humid, and it smells of leaves and soil and moisture. The canopy is a ceiling, a shelter, a barrier between the forest floor and the sky, and it shapes everything beneath it: the temperature, the humidity, the light, the life. The canopy is the forest's crown, and it is the most complex, the most diverse, the most alive part of the forest. The wind rises, the branches sway, the leaves rustle. The canopy breathes green and patient, 100 feet above the ground, as it has for millions of years. The forest does not sleep. When the sun sets and the diurnal creatures retreat to their nests and burrows, the nocturnal world awakens. Owls emerge from hollow trees, their eyes adapted to see in near total darkness. Bats take flight, navigating by echolocation, their calls too high-pitched for human ears. Moths unfurl their wings and seek out night-blooming flowers. The forest at night is not quieter than the forest by day. It is simply different, filled with sounds and movements that belong to creatures who have claimed the darkness as their domain. The night air is cooler, damper, and it smells different, earthier, more pungent, with the scent of nocturnal flowers and the musk of animals. The darkness is not complete. Moonlight filters through the canopy, casting faint shadows, and the stars are visible through gaps in the leaves. The sounds are different too: the hoot of an owl, the rustle of a foraging mammal, the high-pitched chirps of bats, the distant calls of frogs. The forest at night feels alive in a way that is both familiar and alien, a reminder that the world does not revolve around daylight, that half of life happens in the dark. Owls are silent hunters. Their feathers are specially adapted to muffle the sound of flight. The leading edge of the wing feather is serrated, breaking up the airflow and reducing turbulence, and the trailing edge is fringed, dampening the sound even further. An owl can fly within inches of your head, and you would not hear it. This silence is essential for hunting, allowing the owl to approach prey without warning, guided by hearing so acute that it can locate a mouse rustling beneath snow. The owl's eyes are enormous, fixed in their sockets, and they gather light with extraordinary efficiency, allowing the bird to see in conditions that would leave a human blind. The eyes glow faintly when caught in a beam of light, reflecting it back like tiny mirrors. The owl does not blink, it stares, unmoving, and then it strikes, talons extended, wings spread, silent and sudden. The prey does not hear it coming. The forest is quiet, and then the owl is there, and then it is gone, carrying its meal into the darkness. Bioluminescence is rare in terrestrial ecosystems, but it exists. Certain species of fungi glow in the dark, producing a cold green light through chemical reactions in their mycelium or fruiting bodies. The light is faint, visible only in complete darkness, and it may serve to attract insects that will disperse spores, or it may simply be a byproduct of metabolism. The glowing fungi are found on rotting logs and forest floors, turning the night forest into a scene of quiet, eerie beauty. The light is soft and steady, green or blue-green, and it does not flicker. It simply glows, illuminating nothing but the fungi themselves. The mushrooms smell of earth and decay, and the wood they grow on is soft and crumbling, riddled with mycelial threads. When you touch the glowing fungi, they feel cool and slightly damp, and the light does not change. The forest at night is dark, but it is not lightless. The fungi glow, patient and silent, as they have for millions of years, a reminder that light does not always come from the sun or the stars. Fireflies are beetles, and their bioluminescence is a mating signal. The males fly through the forest, flashing their lights in species-specific patterns, and the females, perched on vegetation, flash back if they are receptive. The light is produced by a chemical reaction in the firefly's abdomen, and it is one of the most efficient light sources known. Nearly 100% of the energy is converted to light, with almost no heat. The fireflies do not glow for our entertainment. They glow to find mates, and the forest on a summer night can be filled with their flickering lights, like stars that have descended to earth. The fireflies flash in rhythm, sometimes synchronizing with each other, creating waves of light that pulse through the forest. The light is yellow or green, brief and bright, and it leaves after images on your retinas. The air smells of summer, warm earth, flowers, the faint sweetness of nectar. The fireflies are silent, and the only sounds are the chirp of crickets and the distant calls of frogs. The light show lasts for hours, and then it fades, the fireflies settling into the grass and leaves, waiting for the next night. Moths are the night shift pollinators. While bees and butterflies work during the day, moths visit flowers that bloom at night, attracted by pale colours and strong, sweet scents. Some night-blooming flowers, like moonflowers and night-blooming jasmine, open only after sunset, their petals unfurling in the darkness, releasing fragrances that can be detected from hundreds of feet away. The moths navigate by scent and by the faint light of the moon, their antennae detecting chemical signals in the air. The moths are soft and fuzzy, their wings covered in scales that shimmer faintly in the moonlight. They hover at flowers, their long proboscises probing deep into the blossoms, and they move quickly, visiting dozens of flowers in a night. The flowers smell intensely sweet, almost overpowering, and the scent hangs in the air, thick and heady. The moths do not make noise, and their flight is erratic, zigzagging through the darkness. The forest at night is filled with these silent workers. pollinating flowers that will never see the sun. Nocturnal animals have adaptations for seeing in low light. Many have large eyes with high concentrations of rod cells, which are sensitive to light but do not detect color. Behind the retina, a layer of tissue called the tapetum lucidum reflects light back through the retina, giving the photoreceptors a second chance to detect it. This is why the eyes of nocturnal animals glow when caught in a flashlight beam. The light is being reflected back out of the eye. The eyes glow green, yellow, or red, depending on the species, and they are startling when you encounter them in the dark. Two bright points of light, unblinking, watching. The animals themselves are often invisible, hidden in the shadows, but their eyes give them away. The glow is not light produced by the animal, but light reflected, and it fades when the light source is removed. The forest at night is full of watching eyes, creatures that see you long before you see them, moving through the darkness with a confidence that comes from perfect adaptation. The forest floor at night is alive with invertebrates. Slugs emerge from their hiding places, leaving trails of slime as they feed on fungi and decaying leaves. Beetles scurry through the leaf litter, their antennae twitching, searching for food or mates. Spiders sit in their webs, waiting for prey to blunder into the silk, and centipedes hunt smaller invertebrates, their many legs moving in coordinated waves. The invertebrates are the foundation of the nocturnal food web, and they are everywhere, unseen but essential. The leaf litter is damp and cool, and it smells of decay and earth. When you shine a light on the forest floor, the invertebrates freeze or scatter, their movements quick and erratic. The slugs are slimy and soft, and they leave glistening trails that catch the light. The beetles are hard and shiny, and they click and rustle as they move. The spiders are delicate and precise, their webs strung between leaves and twigs, invisible until the light catches them. The forest floor at night is a miniature world, teeming with life that operates on a scale we rarely notice. Frogs and toads are nocturnal singers. Their calls fill the night air, each species with its own distinctive sound. Chirps, trills, croaks, peeps. The calls are mating signals, males advertising their presence to females, and the loudest, most persistent callers are often the most successful. The sound can be deafening near a pond or stream, a chorus of hundreds or thousands of individuals, each one calling at full volume. The frogs are invisible in the darkness, hidden in the grass or perched on lily pads, but their calls reveal their locations. The sound is rhythmic, pulsing, and it carries across the forest, echoing off trees and water. The air is humid and warm, and it smells of water and vegetation. The frogs do not call for us. They call for each other, and the chorus is a competition, each male trying to outdo his neighbors. The sound is ancient, primal, a reminder that the night belongs to creatures that do not need light to communicate. Nocturnal predators hunt by sound and scent as much as by sight. Foxes listen for the rustle of mice in the grass, their ears swiveling to pinpoint the source, and then they pounce, leaping high and coming down with their front paws on the prey. Raccoons use their sensitive paws to feel for crayfish and frogs in streams, their fingers probing beneath rocks and logs. The predators are patient and methodical, and they move through the forest with a confidence that comes from knowing the terrain intimately. The fox is silent, its paws soft on the forest floor, and it pauses frequently, listening, its ears erect and alert. The raccoon is less cautious, splashing through the water, its hands busy, its eyes reflecting the faint light. The predators do not hurry. They hunt with patience, waiting for the right moment, and when they strike, it is quick and decisive. The forest at night is a place of constant predation, of hunters and hunted, of life and death playing out in the darkness. The moon influences the forest. On bright, full moon nights, nocturnal animals are more active, and predation rates increase because visibility is better. On dark new moon nights, the forest is quieter, and many animals remain hidden, reducing their risk of being seen. The moon does not create light. It reflects the sun's light, and the amount of light it reflects depends on its phase and its position in the sky. The moonlight is pale and cold, and it casts sharp shadows, turning the forest into a landscape of black and silver. The air feels different on a moonlit night, clearer, brighter, less oppressive. The sounds are the same, but they seem louder, more distinct, and the animals are bolder, moving more openly. The moon rises slowly, climbing through the trees, and its light filters through the canopy, creating patterns on the forest floor. The forest does not sleep, but it changes with the moon, its rhythms tied to the cycles of light and dark. Some flowers bloom only at night. The night-blooming cereus opens its enormous white flowers after sunset, and they last only until dawn, wilting as the sun rises. The flowers are pollinated by moths and bats, and they produce intense fragrances to attract their pollinators in the darkness. The blooms are rare and brief, and witnessing one is considered a special event, a reminder that the forest operates on schedules we do not control. The flowers are large and pale, almost luminous in the moonlight, and they smell powerfully sweet, a scent that fills the air and can be detected from far away. The petals are delicate and soft, and they unfurl slowly, opening fully only in the deepest part of the night. The moths and bats arrive, drawn by the scent, and they feed on the nectar, pollinating the flowers in the process. By morning, the flowers are closed and wilting, their brief moment of glory over. The forest does not repeat the performance every night. It waits, sometimes, for years, until conditions are right. The forest at night is a different world. The creatures that inhabit it are adapted to darkness, to silence, to navigating by senses other than sight. The night forest is not less alive than the day forest. It is differently alive, filled with species that have claimed the darkness as their niche, that thrive in conditions that would leave diurnal creatures helpless. The night is not an absence of day. It is its own presence, its own reality, and the forest embraces it. The moon sets. The stars wheel overhead. The nocturnal creatures hunt and call and mate. The forest breathes, dark and patient, as it has since the first nights fell on earth. Water is the forest's lifeblood. It falls as rain, soaks into the soil, is absorbed by roots transported through xylem to the leaves, and released back into the atmosphere through transpiration. The cycle is continuous, and the forest is both a participant and a regulator, influencing rainfall patterns, humidity, and the flow of rivers. A single large tree can transpire hundreds of gallons of water per day, and a forest can generate its own weather, creating clouds and rain through the moisture it releases. The water does not belong to the tree or the river or the atmosphere. It belongs to the cycle, and the cycle has no beginning and no end. The air in a forest is humid, especially near streams, and in the understory where sunlight is limited and evaporation is slow. The humidity is palpable. You can feel it on your skin, cool and damp, and you can smell it, a scent of moisture and vegetation and earth. The leaves are often wet with dew or condensation, and the moss is soft and saturated, releasing water when you press it. The forest holds water in every layer, in the canopy, in the soil, in the plants, in the air, and it releases it slowly, steadily, maintaining a microclimate that is cooler and wetter than the surrounding landscape. Moss does not have roots. It absorbs water directly through its leaves, and it can survive long periods of desiccation, reviving quickly when moisture returns. Moss grows on rocks, on tree bark, on the forest floor, anywhere that stays damp enough for long enough. It is one of the oldest groups of land plants, appearing more than 400 million years ago, and it has changed little since then. Moss does not compete with trees. It occupies niches that trees cannot: bare rock, thin soil, the shaded understory where light is too dim for most other plants. The moss is soft and green, and it feels like velvet when you touch it, cool and damp. It smells faintly of earth and moisture, and when you lift a clump, water drips from it, held in the spaces between the tiny leaves. The moss grows slowly, spreading across surfaces in patches and mats, and it provides habitat for insects, spiders, and other small invertebrates. The moss does not flower. It reproduces through spores released from tiny capsules that rise on delicate stalks, and the spores drift on the wind, settling in new locations, waiting for the moisture that will allow them to grow. Rivers are not static. They change course, carve valleys, deposit sediment, and create habitats. A river in a forest is shaped by the forest and shapes the forest in return. The trees along the riverbank stabilize the soil with their roots, preventing erosion, and they provide shade that keeps the water cool. The river provides water for the trees, and it transports nutrients and sediment downstream, enriching the floodplain. The river and the forest are partners, each one influencing the other, each one dependent on the other. The river smells of water and stone and vegetation, and it sounds constant, a rush, or a murmur, or a roar, depending on the volume and the gradient. The water is cool and clear, or brown and turbid, depending on the season and the recent weather. The riverbank is soft and muddy, or rocky and firm, and it is lined with plants that tolerate periodic flooding: willows, alders, sedges, ferns. The river does not rest. It flows continuously, carving its channel deeper, moving sediment, transporting water from the mountains to the sea. Fog is a cloud at ground level, and in some forests it is a major source of moisture. Coastal redwood forests receive much of their water not from rain but from fog, which condenses on the needles and drips to the ground. The trees are so efficient at capturing fog that they can increase the effective precipitation by 30% or more. The fog does not fall. It drifts, carried by the wind, and it clings to the trees, coating every surface with tiny droplets. The fog is thick and grey, and it muffles sound, turning the forest into a place of silence and mystery. Visibility is reduced to a few feet, and the trees loom out of the mist like ghosts. The air is cold and damp, and it smells of salt and pine and moisture. The fog condenses on your skin, on your clothes, and everything becomes wet, saturated with water that did not fall as rain. The fog does not last. It burns off when the sun rises, or it drifts inland and dissipates. But while it is present, it transforms the forest, turning it into a world of grey and green and silence. Wetlands are transition zones between land and water, and they are among the most productive ecosystems on Earth. Forested wetlands, swamps, floodplain forests, riparian zones are dominated by trees that can tolerate waterlogged soils and periodic flooding. Bald cypress, mangroves, and willows are common in wetlands, and they have adaptations that allow them to survive in conditions that would kill most other trees. Specialized roots that can absorb oxygen from the air, the ability to tolerate salt or stagnant water. The wetland smells of decay and life, a rich organic scent that is both pungent and earthy. The water is dark and still, stained brown by tannins, and it reflects the trees like a mirror. The ground is soft and muddy, and it squelches underfoot, and the air is humid and warm, filled with the buzz of insects and the calls of frogs and birds. The wetland is alive with sound and movement, and it is a nursery for fish, amphibians, and invertebrates. The wetland does not drain. It holds water, filters it, and releases it slowly, preventing floods and droughts downstream. Dew forms when the temperature drops and the air can no longer hold all its moisture. The water vapor condenses on cool surfaces, leaves, grass, spider webs, forming tiny droplets that catch the light and sparkle in the morning sun. Dew is most common on clear, calm nights, when the ground radiates heat into space and the temperature drops rapidly. The dew does not fall from the sky. It forms in place molecule by molecule as the air cools. The dew is cold and clear, and it smells of nothing, just pure water. The leaves are covered in droplets, and they glisten in the early light, and the spider webs are outlined in beads of water, turning them into jeweled nets. The dew evaporates quickly once the sun rises, returning to the atmosphere as vapor. But while it lasts, it provides moisture for insects, spiders, and small animals that drink from the droplets. The dew is ephemeral, a brief gift of water that appears and disappears with the cycle of day and night. Streams in forests are often shaded, and the shade keeps the water cool, which is essential for many aquatic species. Trout and salmon require cold, oxygen-rich water, and they cannot survive in warm streams. The trees along the stream provide shade, and they also provide organic matter, leaves, twigs, insects, that falls into the water and becomes food for aquatic invertebrates. The stream and the forest are connected, the stream depending on the forest for shade and nutrients, the forest depending on the stream for water. The stream is clear and cold, and it smells of stone and moss and clean water. The water flows over rocks and gravel, creating riffles and pools, and the sound is constant, a gentle murmur that fills the forest. The stream bed is lined with smooth stones, and the water is so clear that you can see every detail: the pebbles, the fish, the aquatic insects clinging to the rocks. The stream does not warm. The shade keeps it cool, and the cool water sustains life that would perish in the heat. Humidity affects decomposition. In humid forests, organic matter decomposes quickly, broken down by fungi, bacteria, and invertebrates that thrive in moist conditions. In dry forests, decomposition is slower, and dead wood and leaves can persist for years. The humidity is not just a measure of comfort. It is a driver of ecological processes, determining how quickly nutrients are recycled, how much carbon is stored in the soil, how fast the forest can recover from disturbance. The humid forest floor is soft and spongy, and it smells of decay and growth, a rich, earthy scent that is the signature of active decomposition. The leaves are dark and crumbly, and they break apart easily when you pick them up. The wood is soft and riddled with fungal threads and insect tunnels, and it collapses when you step on it. The humidity is constant, and the decomposers work tirelessly, breaking down the dead and transforming it into the living. The forest does not accumulate waste. It recycles everything, and the humidity makes the recycling fast and efficient. Raindrops do not fall straight down in a forest. They hit the canopy, and they are intercepted by leaves and branches, and they drip or run down the trunk, reaching the ground in a pattern that is determined by the structure of the canopy. Some rain never reaches the ground at all. It evaporates from the leaf surfaces before it can drip. The canopy is a filter, and it changes the distribution of rainfall, creating wet spots and dry spots, influencing where plants can grow and where they cannot. The rain in a forest sounds different from rain in the open. It is softer, more diffuse, a patter and drip rather than a roar. The air smells of wet leaves and earth, and the forest becomes darker, the light filtered through layers of wet foliage. The rain runs down the trunks in streams, and it collects in hollows and depressions, and the forest floor becomes slick and muddy. The rain does not fall evenly. It is redistributed by the canopy, and the forest responds, each plant growing where the water reaches it. Aquifers beneath forests are recharged by rainwater that percolates through the soil. The forest acts as a sponge, absorbing rain and releasing it slowly into the groundwater, preventing floods and maintaining stream flow during dry periods. The roots create channels in the soil, and the organic matter increases the soil's capacity to hold water. A forest can store more water than a grassland or a field, and it releases that water more slowly, steadily, sustaining rivers and streams long after the rain has stopped. The aquifer is invisible, deep beneath the surface, but its effects are everywhere. The streams continue to flow in the dry season, fed by groundwater seeping from the soil. The wells do not run dry. The forest is green even when the surrounding landscape is brown. The aquifer is the forest's savings account, a reserve of water stored underground, and the forest manages it carefully, withdrawing slowly, replenishing with every rain. The aquifer does not announce itself. It simply sustains, patient and hidden, beneath the roots. Waterfalls are places of constant motion and sound. The water falls, crashes and sprays, and the air around a waterfall is saturated with mist. The mist supports plants that require constant moisture, mosses, ferns, liverworts, and it creates a microclimate that is cooler and wetter than the surrounding forest. The waterfall is a source of negative ions, which some people find invigorating, and it is a barrier to fish migration, creating distinct populations above and below the falls. The waterfall roars, a sound that drowns out all others, and the mist is cool and refreshing, coating your skin and clothes. The rocks around the waterfall are slick with moss and algae, and the air smells of water and stone. The waterfall does not stop. It flows continuously, carving the rock, creating a pool at its base, and the pool is deep and cold, fed by the constant cascade. The waterfall is a spectacle, but it is also a habitat, a source of moisture, a shaper of the landscape. The forest remembers water. It holds it in the soil, in the plants, in the air. It releases it slowly, through transpiration, through seepage, through the flow of streams. The forest is a reservoir, a regulator, a participant in the water cycle, and it has been managing water for millions of years, long before humans tried to do the same. The rain falls, the moss absorbs, the river flows. The forest breathes, damp and patient, as it has since water first fell on land. The soil is not dirt, it is a living matrix, teeming with organisms so numerous that a single handful contains more individuals than there are humans on Earth. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, mites, springtails, and countless other microscopic creatures inhabit the spaces between soil particles, breaking down organic matter, cycling nutrients, and creating the conditions that allow plants to grow. The soil is an ecosystem unto itself, as complex and diverse as the forest above it, and it is the foundation upon which everything else depends. Without the soil organisms, there would be no forest, no trees, no life as we know it. The soil smells rich and earthy, like compost and minerals, and it feels cool and slightly damp between your fingers. When you dig down, the colour changes from dark brown at the surface to lighter brown or grey deeper down, and the texture changes from crumbly to dense. The soil is alive with movement, tiny mites scurrying, springtails leaping, earthworms tumbling, and if you look closely with a magnifying glass, you can see the incredible diversity of life that exists in this hidden world. The soil does not rest. It is constantly working, decomposing, building, sustaining the forest above. Ants are ecosystem engineers. They build nests that can extend several feet underground, creating networks of tunnels and chambers that aerate the soil and improve drainage. They move soil particles, bringing nutrients from deep layers to the surface, and they disperse seeds, some of which they eat and some of which they abandon, allowing them to germinate. A single ant colony can contain thousands or even millions of individuals, all working together with a coordination that seems almost intelligent, but is actually the result of simple rules followed by each individual. The ants are small and quick, and they move in lines, following scent trails laid down by other ants. They smell faintly of formic acid, a chemical they use for defense and communication, and when you disturb a nest, they swarm out, aggressive and organized. The nest itself is a marvel of engineering. Chambers for the queen, for eggs, for larvae, for food storage, and the tunnels are smooth and precisely constructed. The ants do not plan. They simply follow their instincts, and the result is a structure that can last for decades, shaping the soil and the forest floor. Beetles are the most diverse group of animals on Earth, with more than 400,000 described species, and many more yet to be discovered. In a forest, beetles occupy every niche. Some eat leaves, some eat wood, some eat fungi, some are predators, some are scavengers. The larvae of many beetles live in the soil or in rotting wood, and they play essential roles in decomposition and nutrient cycling. Beetles are not glamorous, but they are essential, and the forest could not function without them. The beetles are hard and shiny, their exoskeletons armoured and often brightly coloured. They click and rustle as they move through the leaf litter, and they smell faintly of earth and decay. Some beetles are tiny, barely visible, while others are large and impressive, with mandibles that can pinch hard enough to draw blood. The beetles do not hurry, they go about their work methodically, eating, mating, laying eggs, and the next generation continues the cycle. The beetles are ancient, older than the flowering plants, and they have been shaping forests for more than 200 million years. Earthworms are soil builders. They consume organic matter and soil, digesting it and excreting it as castings that are rich in nutrients and beneficial microorganisms. A single earthworm can process its own weight in soil every day, and in a healthy forest, earthworms can turn over the entire top layer of soil every few years. The tunnels they create improve aeration and drainage, and they provide pathways for roots to grow. Earthworms are not native to all forests. They were wiped out in many northern forests by glaciation and have been reintroduced by humans. But where they are present, they have profound effects on soil structure and fertility. The earthworms are soft and pink or brown, and they feel cool and slightly slimy to the touch. They move slowly, contracting and extending their bodies, and they retreat quickly into their burrows when disturbed. The castings they leave on the surface are small piles of dark, crumbly soil, and they are richer in nutrients than the surrounding soil. The earthworms do not see or hear. They sense vibrations and chemical gradients, and they spend their lives underground, eating and tunneling, transforming the soil one mouthful at a time. Springtails are tiny, wingless insects that live in the leaf litter and soil, feeding on fungi, bacteria, and decaying organic matter. They are named for their ability to jump. They have a forked appendage on their abdomen that acts like a spring, launching them into the air when they are disturbed. Springtails are incredibly abundant, with populations that can reach hundreds of thousands per square meter, and they play important roles in decomposition and nutrient cycling. The springtails are so small that they are barely visible without magnification, and they are white, grey, or brown, blending into the soil and leaf litter. When you disturb the leaf litter, they leap in all directions, tiny specks that disappear as quickly as they appear. They have no smell, no sound, only movement. The springtails do not interact with the larger world. They live in the spaces between leaves and soil particles, feeding on microorganisms, and they are preyed upon by mites, spiders, and beetles. The springtails are invisible, but they are essential, breaking down organic matter and making nutrients available to plants. Millipedes are decomposers, feeding on dead leaves and wood, breaking them down into smaller pieces that can be further decomposed by fungi and bacteria. They have many legs, not 1,000 as their name suggests, but often more than 100, and they move slowly and methodically through the leaf litter. When threatened, many millipedes curl into a tight spiral and secrete defensive chemicals that smell unpleasant and can irritate the skin. The millipedes are dark and segmented, and they feel hard and smooth, like polished wood. They move in waves, their legs rippling in coordinated motion, and they smell faintly chemical, acrid and sharp. The millipedes do not bite or sting. They simply curl up and wait for the threat to pass, and then they uncurl and continue their slow journey through the leaf litter. The millipedes are ancient, among the first animals to colonize land, and they have been decomposing organic matter for more than 400 million years. Spiders are predators, and they are everywhere in the forest, on the ground, in the leaf litter, on tree trunks, in the canopy. They hunt insects and other small invertebrates, and they use a variety of strategies: webs, ambush, active pursuit. Spiders are not insects. They are arachnids with 8 legs and 2 body segments, and they play important roles in controlling insect populations. A single spider can consume hundreds of insects in a year, and the forest is full of spiders, thousands of them, each one hunting in its own niche. The spiders are delicate and precise, their legs long and thin, and they move quickly when hunting or slowly when stalking. The webs are works of art, strung between branches or leaves, invisible until the light catches them, and they are sticky and strong, capable of holding struggling prey. The spiders do not waste energy. They wait in their webs or in ambush, and when prey arrives they strike quickly, injecting venom and wrapping the prey in silk. The spiders are patient, and they are efficient, and they are essential to the balance of the forest. Termites are decomposers, feeding on wood and breaking it down with the help of symbiotic microorganisms in their guts. In tropical forests, termites are among the most important decomposers, processing vast amounts of dead wood and returning nutrients to the soil. Termite colonies can be enormous, with millions of individuals, and they build complex nests, mounds, underground chambers, galleries in dead wood that can last for decades. The termites are social insects, with a division of labor similar to ants, and they communicate through chemical signals and vibrations. The termites are pale and soft-bodied, and they avoid light, retreating into their tunnels when exposed. The nests are hard and durable, built from soil and saliva and feces, and they are often covered in fungi that the termites cultivate for food. The termites smell faintly of wood and earth, and they move in lines carrying pieces of wood back to the nest. The termites do not stop. They work constantly, day and night, breaking down wood, building nests, tending the queen, and raising the next generation. The termites are invisible, but their effects are everywhere. Dead wood disappearing, nutrients cycling, the forest renewing itself. Soil mites are tiny arachnids, often less than a millimeter long, and they are among the most abundant animals in the soil. They feed on fungi, bacteria, nematodes, and decaying organic matter, and they are preyed upon by larger mites, springtails and beetles. Soil mites are incredibly diverse, with thousands of species, and they play important roles in decomposition and nutrient cycling. They are invisible to the naked eye, but they are everywhere, in every handful of soil, in every clump of leaf litter. The mites are so small that they are barely visible even with a magnifying glass, and they are white, brown, or red depending on the species. They move slowly, crawling through the spaces between soil particles, and they have no smell, no sound, only presence. The mites do not interact with the larger world. They live in the microhabitat of the soil, feeding and reproducing, and they are part of the vast, invisible network of life that sustains the forest. The mites are uncountable, unknowable, and essential. Butterflies and moths begin their lives as caterpillars, and the caterpillars are eating machines, consuming leaves and growing rapidly. Some caterpillars are specialists, feeding on only one or a few plant species, while others are generalists, eating a wide variety of plants. The caterpillars are preyed upon by birds, wasps, spiders, and other predators, and many have evolved defenses: camouflage, warning colors, spined toxic chemicals. The caterpillars are the link between plants and the animals that eat them, and they are essential to the flow of energy through the forest. The caterpillars are soft and segmented, and they feel cool and slightly fuzzy or smooth depending on the species. They move slowly, inching along leaves and stems, and they smell faintly of the plants they eat. Some caterpillars are brightly coloured, warning predators that they are toxic, while others are green or brown, blending into the foliage. The caterpillars do not know they will become butterflies or moths. They simply eat, growing larger, molting, eating more, until they are ready to pupate and transform. Nematodes are microscopic roundworms, and they are among the most abundant animals on Earth. In the soil, nematodes feed on bacteria, fungi, other nematodes, and plant roots, and they are preyed upon by fungi, mites, and other soil organisms. Nematodes are incredibly diverse, with tens of thousands of species, and they play important roles in nutrient cycling and soil health. They are invisible without a microscope, but they are everywhere, in every gram of soil, in every drop of water. The nematodes are transparent and thread-like, and they move by thrashing their bodies in S-shaped curves. They have no smell, no sound, no colour, only form and movement. The nematodes do not interact with the visible world. They live in the water films around soil particles, feeding on microorganisms, and they are part of the microbial food web that drives decomposition and nutrient cycling. The nematodes are uncountable, and they are essential, breaking down organic matter and making nutrients available to plants. The forest floor is a city. Millions of organisms, most of them invisible, work constantly, breaking down the dead, building the soil, cycling nutrients, creating the foundation for the trees above. The micro-kingdoms do not rest. They work in darkness, in silence, in spaces too small for us to see, and they have been doing so for hundreds of millions of years. The insects crawl, the worms tunnel, the mites feed, the soil breathes, alive and patient, as it has since the first forests grew on land. The forest is not a place, it is a process, a cycle that has no beginning and no end. Trees grow, live, and die. Leaves fall and decompose. Nutrients are absorbed, used, and released. Water cycles from soil to atmosphere and back again. Energy flows from the sun through plants to animals to decomposers and back to the soil. The forest is not static. It is dynamic, constantly changing, constantly renewing itself, and it has been doing so for hundreds of millions of years. The cycle is the forest, and the forest is the cycle. The forest smells of life and death intermingled, fresh growth and decay, flowers and rot, resin and humus. The air is filled with the sounds of the cycle, leaves rustling, branches creaking, insects buzzing, birds calling, water flowing. The forest floor is soft with the accumulated debris of centuries, and beneath it, the soil is alive with organisms that transform the dead into the living. The forest does not pause. It turns constantly, patiently, through seasons and centuries, through ice ages and warm periods, through extinctions and radiations. The cycle continues, indifferent to individual lives, sustaining the whole. A tree falls, and the forest changes. The gap in the canopy allows light to reach the forest floor, and seedlings that have been waiting in the shade for years or decades suddenly have the light they need to grow. The fallen tree becomes a nurse log, providing habitat for insects, fungi, and small mammals, and nutrients for the seedlings that root in its decaying wood. The gap will close eventually as the young trees grow tall, but it may take decades or centuries, and in the meantime the gap creates diversity, a patch of different conditions in the otherwise uniform shade. The fallen tree smells of fresh wood and sap at first, and then of decay as the fungi and bacteria colonize it. The bark loosens and falls away, and the wood softens, becoming spongy and dark. Moss and ferns grow on the log, and seedlings sprout from the crevices, their roots reaching down into the rotting wood. The log does not disappear quickly. It may take a century or more to fully decompose, and during that time it supports a succession of organisms, each one contributing to the transformation of wood into soil. The tree has fallen, but it has not left the forest. It has simply changed form. Succession is the process by which ecosystems change over time, recovering from disturbances or developing on new land. After a fire, the first plants to colonize the burned ground are often grasses and wildflowers which stabilize the soil and add nutrients. Shrubs follow, then fast-growing trees like aspens and pines, and eventually slower-growing trees like oaks and maples take over, creating a mature forest. The process can take decades or centuries, and each stage creates conditions that allow the next stage to develop. Succession is not linear. It is influenced by climate, soil, seed availability, and chance, and it can be set back by new disturbances. The burned forest smells of charcoal and ash, and the ground is black and bare, but within weeks green shoots appear, grasses, fireweed, lupins, and the air begins to smell of new growth. The young forest is dense and chaotic, filled with competing plants, and it smells of resin and flowers and fresh leaves. The mature forest is quieter, more orderly, and it smells of soil and shade and the slow decay of organic matter. The forest does not mourn what was lost. It simply grows, stage by stage, toward a new equilibrium that will last until the next disturbance. Fire is not the enemy of the forest. In many ecosystems, fire is essential, clearing out dead wood, releasing nutrients, and creating conditions for new growth. Some trees, like lodgepole pines and giant sequoias, have evolved to depend on fire. Their cones open only when exposed to high heat, releasing seeds into the ash-enriched soil. Fire suppression, practiced for decades in many forests, has led to the accumulation of fuel and the increased risk of catastrophic fires. The forest evolved with fire, and it needs fire to remain healthy. The fire smells of smoke and burning wood, acrid and intense, and the heat is overwhelming, driving animals away and killing plants that cannot escape. But the fire is quick, and it passes, leaving behind a landscape of ash and charred trunks. The ash smells faintly sweet, and it is rich in nutrients, and within days the first green shoots appear, pushing through the black ground. The fire has not destroyed the forest, it has reset it, creating space for new growth, releasing nutrients, and maintaining the diversity that comes from disturbance. The forest does not fear fire. It has adapted to it, and in some places it depends on it. Seasons drive the cycle. In temperate forests, spring brings new growth, leaves unfurling, flowers blooming, birds nesting. Summer is a time of abundance, when photosynthesis is at its peak and the forest is green and lush. Autumn is a time of preparation, when trees withdraw nutrients from their leaves and let them fall, and animals gather food for the winter. Winter is a time of dormancy, when growth slows or stops, and the forest waits for the return of warmth and light. The seasons are not arbitrary. They are driven by the tilt of the Earth's axis and the orbit around the Sun, and they have shaped the evolution of every organism in the forest. The spring forest smells of wet earth and new leaves, fresh and green, and it sounds alive with birdsong and the buzz of insects. The summer forest smells of flowers and resin, and it is warm and humid, filled with the hum of life. The autumn forest smells of fallen leaves, earthy and slightly sweet, and it is quieter, the birds having migrated or fallen silent. The winter forest smells of cold and snow, and it is silent. The only sounds the creak of frozen branches and the whisper of wind. The seasons turn, and the forest turns with them, each season a chapter in the endless cycle. Death feeds life. Every organism that dies in the forest becomes food for decomposers, and the nutrients in its body are released back into the soil, where they can be absorbed by plants. A dead deer is consumed by scavengers, crows, ravens, coyotes, bears, and what they leave behind is broken down by insects, bacteria and fungi. Within weeks or months, the deer is gone, its body transformed into soil and new growth. Death is not an ending, it is a transformation, a redistribution of matter and energy, and it is essential to the cycle. The dead deer smells of decay, strong and unpleasant, and it attracts flies and beetles that lay eggs in the carcass. The larvae feed on the rotting flesh, and the scavengers tear at the remains, scattering bones and fur. The smell fades as the soft tissues disappear, and eventually only bones remain, white and clean, and they too will break down slowly over years or decades. The deer has not left the forest. Its atoms are in the soil, in the plants, in the animals that ate it, and they will cycle through the forest for as long as the forest exists. The carbon cycle links the forest to the atmosphere and the ocean. Trees absorb carbon dioxide from the air and build it into wood, leaves, and roots. When the tree dies and decomposes, the carbon is released back into the atmosphere, or it is stored in the soil as humus. The forest is a carbon sink, pulling CO2 from the atmosphere and storing it. But it is also a carbon source, releasing CO2 through respiration and decomposition. The balance between absorption and release determines whether the forest is a net sink or a net source, and that balance is shifting as the climate changes. The carbon is invisible, but its effects are everywhere. The tree grows because it captures carbon from the air. The soil is dark because it contains carbon from decomposed organic matter. The atmosphere warms because carbon dioxide traps heat. The carbon cycles through the forest, through the atmosphere, through the ocean. And it has been cycling for billions of years, since the first photosynthetic organisms appeared. The forest is part of the cycle, and the cycle is part of the Earth system, and the Earth system is changing, faster than it has in millions of years. The nitrogen cycle is driven by bacteria. Nitrogen is abundant in the atmosphere, but most organisms cannot use it in its gaseous form. Certain bacteria, living in the soil or in nodules on the roots of legumes, can fix atmospheric nitrogen, converting it into forms that plants can absorb. The nitrogen is passed through the food web, from plants to animals to decomposers, and it is eventually returned to the atmosphere by denitrifying bacteria. The cycle is slow and complex, and it is essential to all life. The nitrogen-fixing bacteria are invisible, but their effects are visible in the lush growth of plants that host them. The nodules on legume roots are small and pink, and they smell faintly of earth and roots. The bacteria work constantly converting nitrogen gas into ammonia, and the plant provides them with sugars in return. The partnership is ancient and essential, and it has allowed plants to colonize soils that would otherwise be too poor in nitrogen to support growth. The nitrogen cycles, and the forest grows, sustained by invisible microorganisms working in the soil. Predation regulates populations. Without predators, herbivore populations can explode, leading to overgrazing and the destruction of vegetation. With predators, herbivores are kept in check and the vegetation can recover. The presence of predators creates a landscape of fear where herbivores avoid certain areas or change their behavior, and this allows plants to grow in places they would otherwise be consumed. Predation is not cruel, it is regulation, and it is essential to the balance of the forest. The predator is patient, watching, waiting for the right moment. The prey is wary, scanning for danger, ready to flee. The interaction is brief and violent, and then it is over, and the forest continues. The predator does not kill for sport, it kills to eat, and in eating, it regulates the prey population, preventing overgrazing and maintaining the diversity of the forest. The cycle of predation is as old as life itself, and it is part of the balance that allows the forest to persist. Mutualism is cooperation, and it is everywhere in the forest. Mycorrhizae connect fungi and plant roots. Pollinators visit flowers, lichens combine fungi and algae, nitrogen-fixing bacteria live in root nodules. These partnerships are not altruistic. Each partner benefits, and the relationship persists because it is advantageous to both. Mutualism is as important as competition, and in many cases, it is more important because it allows organisms to survive in conditions they could not tolerate alone. The partnerships are invisible or overlooked, but they are fundamental. The tree cannot grow without mycorrhizae. The flower cannot reproduce without pollinators. The lichen cannot colonize bare rock without the partnership of fungus and algae. The mutualism is ancient, refined over millions of years, and it is woven into the fabric of the forest. The organisms do not cooperate consciously, they simply interact, and the interaction benefits both, and the forest is richer for it. The forest is resilient. It recovers from fires, from storms, from droughts, from insect outbreaks. It adapts to changing climates, to new species, to disturbances. The resilience comes from diversity. Many species, many strategies, many ways of surviving. A forest with high diversity can withstand disturbances that would destroy a monoculture, because if one species fails, others can take its place. The resilience is not infinite. There are limits, thresholds beyond which the forest cannot recover, but within those limits, the forest is remarkably tough. The disturbed forest is chaotic, filled with fallen trees and broken branches, but it is not dead. The roots are still alive, the seeds are still in the soil, and the organisms that survived are already beginning to rebuild. The forest does not give up, it simply grows, adapting to the new conditions, finding new equilibria, and within decades or centuries the disturbance is integrated into the history of the forest, a scar that has healed, a gap that has closed. The forest endures. The cycle has no end. The forest will continue as long as there is sunlight, water, and soil. It will change, adapt, evolve, but it will persist, turning through the seasons, through the centuries, through the millennia. The forest is older than we are, and it will outlast us, patient and indifferent. A living monument to the power of cycles, of renewal, of life feeding on death, and death feeding life. The sun rises. The leaves unfurl. The cycle turns. The forest breathes, eternal and patient, as it has since the first trees grew on earth.